There are 100 of them outside, I think. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because, well, I counted. Or tried to. You lose track past a certain point. They move. They drift in and out of my sightline. But on any given morning, when I carefully and look out the second floor break room, I am sure there are at least 100 of them. And this is only one city block. Downtown was always crowded. That's the thing nobody tells you about a downtown outbreak. All those people who lived here, worked here, passed through here, they didn't go anywhere. They're still here. Every one of them. I write things down because it keeps me sane, and because it might help keep me alive. Their patterns, their triggers. I've learned that they're worst at midday, sluggish at dawn. That sun sound pulls them like a current pulling water. I've learned that a closed storefront that looks undisturbed holds no interest for them. I've learned exactly how still I need to be when one of them drifts close to the glass. I am 10 feet from them now. 10 feet in a pane of covered glass and everything I know about being quiet. This store is mine, the street is theirs. As long as I respect that arrangement, I stay alive. I came in here 3 weeks ago for pasta and a can of tomatoes. I had a mental list: pasta, tomatoes, maybe some bread if the sourdough looked good. I lived 4 blocks away. I'd been in this store 100 times. I knew what time the store was the quietest and where they hid the good olive oil. Frank was the owner of the store. His name was on the sign outside and safety pinned to his shirt. He talked about his dog the same way people talk about their kids. I was standing in the dry goods aisle comparing 2 brands of pasta when the front doors blew open and the end of the world came inside. There were 6 of us in the store when it started. Me, Frank, who owned the place and had been restocking the dairy case, a young woman named Addie, who worked the register, maybe 20, studying something at night school, an older couple, terrorist by the look of their shoes, who'd been deliberating over a bottle of cheap wine for 10 minutes, and a heavy-set man in a delivery uniform, the name Tony sewn into the breast pocket. His truck was parked out back, and he was unloading produce, and it ended up watching everything unfold in the store with the rest of us saying, "What in the hell?" every 30 seconds. The first injured came in about 9:44 a.m. A woman, mid-30s, holding her arm. She said she'd been bitten by a man who attacked her on the sidewalk. Said he'd been acting insane. Said she ran in for someone to call the police. She was shaking, and she looked terrified. We let her in because, of course, we let her in. What kind of person wouldn't? Looking back, I wish we didn't let any of the people in. Frank went to the back and called for an ambulance while the old woman helped her treat the bite. Maybe a minute or 2 passed when a teenager with a neck wound came stumbling into view. When I went to the front door, a woman in a dress suit and high heels jumped on him. Tony pushed his way past me and into the fray outside. He threw the crazed woman off, but she got up fast, and he ended up having to deck her really hard. She spilled back a little further, but got up unfazed. He dragged the boy into the store as I quickly closed the door behind them. The woman smashed against the glass door, but it held firm. Everyone turned to face the front door as she kept hurling herself against it. She might have eventually broke it if it weren't for the siren of the ambulance outside. It stopped short and the paramedic jumped out. She turned and went to him fast. His hands were reaching out to her. I could see the concerned look on his face turn into confusion, and then terror when the woman locked onto him in a deadly embrace. His partner came out of the driver's side, yelling, trying to help him. I didn't see the runners coming. Maybe I could have warned them. About 5 more joined the fray, attacking the medics, taking them to the ground. Frank pushed past me, locked the door, and as quietly as he could, pulled the roll-down gate and locked it. It took a while to compose myself. Frank got it together first and went to his back office to call the police. The old couple moved to the back of the store. Addie was on the verge of losing it, but didn't because Tony came over and helped calm her down. I was too shocked. I stood in stunned silence. It was barely even a half minute when Addie gasped and pointed. Everyone's attention turned to the kid. The poor kid. In all the commotion, he bled out on the floor. Frank came out from the office quickly, looked at where we were pointing, and walked up to the young man. Failing to see any sign of life, he stepped back, braced himself against the checkout counter, and said nothing. Music had been playing softly from a radio in the front of the store until an announcement broke in. First, it was the chief of police warning citizens of the downtown area to stay inside and those coming into work to avoid it altogether. Next, the mayor came on to announce roads on the bypasses and were closed and reiterated staying inside and avoiding the downtown until they got a handle on this. As I listened to the radio, I noticed the injured woman sweating and sitting down. I don't want to write about what happened next in that store, but I feel obligated to tell others who find my story so they know what happened here. The dead kid started twitching, then his eyes opened wide awake. In a quick spasm, he was on his feet, mouth spitting, wide open, and came straight at me. I backed up and went around the aisle and sprinted to the back of the store. The old man had grabbed a broom off a shelf for self-defense, but it barely slowed down the creature. He wasn't strong enough, and his wife, not fast enough. And at the front of the store, the injured woman went berserk. Not died, berserk. She flew into a full-blown crazy. Tony was the nearest and too focused on the kid chasing me. She was on him and tearing out the side of his neck as blood flowed out. Not out of the fight, though. He tossed her hard into the end cap and hit her with everything he got, sending it hard to the ground. But his wound kept bleeding, and he stumbled to his knees as she got right back up. I heard a loud boom and saw the bottom half of the woman's head come clear off. The kid turned around and raced toward the sound. Frank's shotgun hit the kid in the chest, but hardly slowed it down. With the kid grabbing him, they had a short scuffle that ended with Frank pushing it far enough away to also blow his head off. Taking a few breaths, but not saying a word, Frank walked up to Tony's lifeless body and shot him in the head. Then turned and walked back to the back area and did the same to the dead elderly couple. I don't know why Frank did any of those things. I didn't dare ask him. He was holding the shotgun after all. But he stood there looking at his arm. I could see deep scratches and a bite mark. And then Frank said one word: infected. I don't know why he thinks he's infected or with what. Perhaps he heard something or somebody told him something over the phone. Maybe the police. But he never mentioned to me. It was a while before I understood exactly what we were up against. And as Addie helped him bandage the wound to stop bleeding, Frank asked me to drag the bodies to the back of the store. Frank lasted about 1 more hour, but he spent those being Frank, organizing, taking stock, telling us where things were, writing things down on a notebook in a small, careful handwriting, and leaving it on the counter. He showed me the back room area and the stairs to the second floor break room. Small, but there was a window looking out onto the plaza. The last thing he did was put out the store keys, writing down which key opened what, and grabbed his shotgun. He told me what was coming and said he wasn't going to let it happen here, in this store. He put on his coat, he shook my hand for a long time, and gave Addie a big hug. He went out the back door, and I locked it behind him. Addie left the next morning. I tried to talk her out of it, but she had family north of the city, and with the delivery truck in the back parking lot, she was going to try and make it there. She almost convinced me to come, but news from the radio painted a city under siege. I envisioned the truck getting waylaid somehow, and us needing to run for our lives. She hugged me hard once, and then she left. I listened to the truck start, watched her struggle with the controls, pulled away, and then the back lot was quiet. I stood in the store alone, and the quiet was enormous. The first thing before food, before water, before any of it, was the front windows. The storefront was plate glass, floor to ceiling, running the full width of the building. The roll door gate covered most of it, but not all. There were sections of exposed glass on either side, and the roll door itself had a gap at the top. During the day, anyone on the street who got close enough could see the light, movement, signs of life. I didn't know enough about what was out there yet, whether they tracked movement or responded to light, but I knew that visible was not what I wanted to be. I found the answer in the stockroom, rolls of black plastic sheeting. I ran them across every exposed pane of glass from the inside, taping them tight with industrial packing tape. I worked quietly, staying low, because things moved past on the sidewalk outside while I worked, and the plastic sheeting billowed when I pressed it against the glass. When it was done, the store was almost dark in the middle of the day. I stood in the cereal aisle, and the darkness felt like armor. I chose to leave one small gap, a 6-inch strip near the top of the east window, too high to be seen through from the street, but enough for me to stand on a step stool and look out at the angle. Enough to see the block, enough to know what was out there before I touched any door. That afternoon, 3 hours after Addie left, I went up to the staircase to the break room, and I stayed back from the window in the shadow and looked down at the street. Downtown has always been crowded. Office workers, tourists, delivery trucks, the whole dense machinery of a city block running at full speed. All those people were still here. Every single one of them still here, in the street and on the sidewalks, and drifting in and out of doorways. I saw 100, but I'm pretty sure there were thousands upon thousands upon thousands. The scale of it hit me. I sat on the chair at the window for a long time and understood, for the first time, exactly what I was dealing with. I went back downstairs and sat in Frank's office. A knock came later that afternoon. 3 sharp raps on the back door Then a voice, male, hushed, urgent. "Hey, I know you're in there." I stood in the stockroom and didn't breathe. "I'm not one of them," he said. "I swear to God. I've been in the parking garage across the lot for 2 days. Please, I haven't had anything to eat." I wanted to open the door, and I want to be honest about that. Every part of me wanted to open it. He sounded terrified. He sounded exactly like a person who needed help, which is what he probably was. But he also sounded exactly like what the woman with the bitten arm had sounded like, and I knew where that had ended. So I said nothing, did nothing, didn't move. He knocked again, harder this time, then harder still. "Come on," he said. "Come on, please. If I could just get something to drink." His voice was rising, and I thought, the noise will draw them. Stop, please, stop. He stopped, and then a long silence. I heard him moving along the back lot, away from the door, his footsteps quick on the asphalt. I went upstairs to the second floor window. I found him almost immediately emerging to the front seat. At the time, there were no zombies out there. He was looking both ways with the focused desperation of a man calculating odds in real time. He was young, maybe mid-20s, a backpack on, a piece of rebarb in one hand. He looked capable. He looked like he'd been managing. He turned north, moving fast along the far side of the street, staying against the buildings. But they noticed him at the intersection. 4 of them turned toward him simultaneously. That horrible unified attention. He saw them and changed direction, and that drew more. He was fast. He was faster than them. But downtown was full of them, and fast only gets you so far when they're coming from every direction. He rounded a corner and was gone from my sight. I stood at the window and waited, but he didn't come back. So I went downstairs. I sat on the floor of the stockroom and put my back against the wall and stayed there for a while. I had not opened the door, but I was still alive. Those 2 facts existed together, and I was going to have to learn how to carry them. The food situation is what it is. The meat went first. Within 1 day of the power going out, the grid died on day 2. The smell from the butcher section became something I can only describe as a physical presence, a thing that moved through the store in an occupied space. I dealt with by taking trash bags from the kitchen aisle and placing the meat one by one into everything until it was bagged and wrapped up. The next problem was the bodies. They hadn't quite started to stink, but I knew I had to work and work fast. There were bigger trash bags, and I placed the bodies into them. One covered the head all the way to the chest, and the other covered the feet all the way up the thighs. With duct tape from the hardware aisle, I used another bag around the midsection to make a body bag. The back door didn't have a window, so I couldn't see the back lot. Bagging the bodies took most of the day, and the sun was headed west fast. I found a baseball bat and gripped it tight. Leaning against the back door, I opened it a little and looked out. Quiet was all that I could see, but not very much through that tiny crack. Satisfied, I opened more, enough to stick my head out. I could see half of the back lot was empty, with a large iron dumpster nearby. Opening more, I could see the whole lot and a zombie against the back fence. So I closed the door fast, and a little too loud. I waited a few minutes in anticipation of the sound of it hitting the back door, but that didn't happen. I rubbed my eyes and thought hard. I already spent a night with these bodies here, and pretty soon they're going to stink and become a hazard. Not only that, but the meat from the fridge also needed to be thrown out. This is a big step. I need to get through this, get it done, and things will get easier. I checked my grip on the bat and opened the door a little, waited, and then opened a little more. I kept doing this until once I could see the back lot again, and I looked for the zombie, but it wasn't there. The first body wasn't easy. It slid around and tore open the bag. I hastily rewrapped it and tried carrying it again. When I got to the door, I fumbled around with the handle, but had to put the body down to open it. One foot held the door slightly ajar while I worked the bag until I was able to get out. Walking over to the dumpster, I placed the body carefully down when I heard the back door close and make a click. I looked at the door. Pure panic shot through me. I hurried, pulled the knob, but it wouldn't open. Breathing came heavy as my eyes darted around the back of the lot for any sign of danger. I pulled the door again, and the same thing didn't budge. My head against the door, I rifled through my pockets and found only my keys. I stepped back and looked around. Where were Frank's keys? Still on the counter? I wondered if there was a way up to the roof, and maybe, or at least, I could get off the street and out of sight. But there was no such purchase to get to the roof. My hands balled up into my face. I froze in fear, not knowing what to do next. "Have you tried turning the handle?" came a woman's voice behind me. I turned around. She was carrying a metal pipe and a backpack. Looked to be in her early 20s. I was still staring at her when she looked around, walked up, and turned the handle to open the door. Back inside the store, I stood for a moment with her, looking at her, shaking a little bit, telling her thank you so very much. I had been so stupid in not turning the handle, but trying to pull it. But she smiled until she saw the bags. "Are those bodies?" she asked. So of course I said yes. I mean, what am I supposed to say? So I told her yes, but I have to get them outside before the sun goes down, and they really start to stink. "Yeah, no, I'm out of here," is what she said. I went to follow her to explain what happened in the store when I got a face full of mace. I heard the back door open and close. In between spastic coughing, I went to the ground and continued to struggle for my breath for the better part of an hour. The eye care aisle had saline solution, and once I could see better through my red, bloodshot eyes, I began flushing out more of the mace. It took about an hour to recover enough to see the sun was beginning to set. I made the decision at that point to finish the dumping of the bodies in the spoiled meat bags tomorrow. But before I did anything else, I went to the counter, grabbed Frank's keys, locked the back door, and then placed the keys in my pocket. The next morning, disposing of the bodies went fast and without incident. The spoiled meat followed. When I was done, I silently closed the dumpster lid and went back inside. The dairy had already gone bad. I had been able to get, some of the yogurt and soft cheeses before we had to start throwing them out. But the milk, was lost, and the smell of its specific sour misery was dealt with, bagged, and taken outside. What remains is more than enough. Canned goods, running the full length of a 12-foot aisle on both sides, floor to ceiling. Dry goods, pasta, rice, lentil, flours, oats, self-stable for years. 8 loaves of commercial sandwich bread. A full aisle of bottled water plus everything in the coolers that didn't need power to still be drinkable. I eat 3 times a day, measured and deliberate. I allow myself one thing I actually want per day from the snack aisle. Today it was barbecue chips, yesterday a king-size peanut butter cup. And I eat them slowly in the dark. I sleep in Frank's office. The door locks and has a bolt. 8 by 10 feet. A desk, a couch he uses for afternoon naps. A shelf of binders, a framed photo of his dog. I sleep on the couch, supplemented with a teddy bear that I can use as a pillow that I got from the kids' aisle. I sleep in pieces, but I've learned to do it. I turn on the radio, catching fragments out of static. One time, a military frequency. Another, a woman's voice, cutting in and out. I change the batteries, but that doesn't fix it. Even when I'm upstairs in the break room, by the window, the signal is still bad. So I make some breakfast, fried cereal, and study the street. I have Frank's notebook, and I write everything down. Their patterns, what draws them, what directions they drift, at which hours. The information makes me feel less helpless, which may be its primary purpose. But it also may save my life someday, so I keep writing. Day 4, I had been careful about fire, about heat, about anything that produced smoke. With the power gone, I used candles. I only light them when needed. I've been doing things carefully, or I thought I had. I grabbed a box of dry pasta and a jar of tomato sauce that afternoon. Real pasta, what I'd come for a lifetime ago. I thought about trying to light a few candles underneath a flat piece of metal and a stand set up to boil the pasta with some water. I was tired of eating lukewarm canned food and made a decision I immediately came to regret. The break room had no ventilation that was working with the power gone. I boiled the pasta in a saucepan, the point being that I was distracted, thinking about pasta like a person who had forgotten the situation he was in. The sauce was going to go into the pan, but the flame caught the edge of a paper towel I set too close, and for approximately 4 seconds, there was more smoke than I could deal with. I did get the paper towel into the sink and poured a little bit of water from a bottle, but the smoke had already been spreading, even though thin and gray, not really that much, toward the ceiling. The smoke alarm was a small white disc on the ceiling. I had simply never thought about it. And then it screamed. The sound was enormous in the quiet building, a sound designed to be impossible to ignore, doing exactly its job. And I stood frozen for 2 full seconds before I started moving. The alarm was above me, and I reached for the button, pressing once, but not successful. Pressing and holding longer, still no luck. The alarm kept screaming, and I could hear, even over it, the sound coming from the street below. I grabbed a chair and hit the alarm fitfully. The first swing cracked the casing, and the alarm kept screaming. The second swing broke it half off the ceiling, wire showing, still screaming. The third swing ended it, and then there was silence. I placed the chair back down, sat and breathed in the silence until I heard the front of the store. The sound was like nothing I want to describe in detail. The pressure against the plate glass multiplied, hands banging, everything banging against the glass. I went down the stairs without thinking and through the back room to the edge of the store floor and looked toward the front. The plastic sheeting was bowing inward on both sides of the roll door gate, pressing through the gap. At the top, I could see through the gap that the glass on the right side was cracking. While I stood at the back of the store and watched the plastic sheeting breathe in and out, I made a decision in approximately 3 seconds. The back door was 20 feet to my left, and then the lot behind it, and everything that might be drawn by the noise in the city. Or I could go to Frank's office. Back through the back room, I could lock that door, then into Frank's office, lock door, lock bolt. That would have 3 walls between me and whatever was at the front of the store. I went through the back room closed door and turned the lock. I locked and bolted the office door, stepping back, listening to the banging, saying a prayer to anyone who was listening to make it stop. The front gate held. After what I was believed was 2 hours, the pressure at the front door eased. The sounds gradually spread, but diffused, the way they do when there's nothing left to hold their attention. I sat in the office until I was certain, and then I sat a while longer. I opened the doors and went back into the store. The gate was still holding, but the glass was cracked. The plastic sheeting was still up, but torn in a few places. It was still safe. We had survived. So I turned around, closed the door to the storeroom, locked it, went upstairs, took the pasta that I was trying to cook. I tried to eat it, but it was terrible. So I decided to throw it out and never eat pasta again. I am still here. The days are now weeks and the food holds out. I eat, I sleep, I listen to the radio, I watch the street from the second floor window, and I'll log what I see, and I think about what the man with the rebar some nights, whether he made it around that corner, whether he found something. I think about Addie and whether she reached her family in the north. Then I think about Frank's dog at the address in the notebook. I think, not yet, but soon. I think I came in here for pasta and a can of tomatoes, and I am still here. That's enough for today, though. That's enough.